Welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going to be tackling this concept of the wounded inner child and how it can really impact our growth as people.
Interesting.
You sent over this video by Bentinho Massaro.
Yes.
And he seems to have like a pretty unique perspective on it, even tying in the chakra system.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, have you worked with that much before?
A little bit, yeah. But I'm curious to see how he puts that all together.
Me too. So first off, for anyone listening who maybe isn't super familiar with the idea, can you just explain briefly what we mean when we talk about the wounded inner child?
Yeah, the wounded inner child is basically the part of us that's holding on to unresolved pain from our childhood experiences.
Okay.
And it could be from something that we, traditionally think of as like a really big trauma, but it can also be from seemingly small events that really impacted us as children.
Yeah, like in the video, he gives that example of a child who's like, super excited about their plan to like save the world. And the parent kind of just brushes it off.
Right.
And I can see how, even if it's not like, malicious,
right,
that could still make a kid feel like really unheard.
Totally. Like it's all about how those experiences made us feel.
Yeah.
So feeling dismissed or ignored or like our emotions didn't really matter to the adults around us.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things can create these wounds that we carry with us.
So what happens if we just ignore those wounds?
Well, they don't usually just go away on their own. Usually we try to suppress them.
Okay.
Those painful memories and emotions, we push them down. And we might not even consciously remember them, but they can still be there.
Okay.
Like lurking beneath the surface and impacting us.
Right. Like, yeah, it's almost like subconsciously I'm trying to protect myself from that hurt.
Exactly.
But it's still affecting my actions in ways I don't even realize.
Yeah.
Like, when I get defensive, if someone gives me feedback at work, maybe that's because I had like a really critical teacher when I was younger.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it could be. And you know what? The fact that those old patterns are coming up now.
Yeah.
That actually means you're becoming more self-aware. So that's actually a good thing.
Okay.
Yeah, you're ready to start healing those wounds.
So this is where I think it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Bentinho brings in the chakra system.
Yeah.
Which is not something I've read a ton about, but sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Could you give us like a quick crash course on how the chakras work?
Okay, so think of chakras like these energy centers in your body. Each one is connected to a different part of your being.
Okay.
There are 7 main chakras. You start at the base of your spine. That's the root chakra. It's all about survival instincts, like feeling safe and grounded. Mm-hmm. Then you move up to the sacral chakra, which is about your creativity, emotions, sensuality.
Okay.
Then there's the solar plexus chakra. That's your personal power, confidence.
Oh, got it.
Then the heart chakra, of course, is the center of love, compassion, connection. Mm. Then we go up to the throat chakra. All about communication and expressing yourself.
Okay.
Above that, the third eye chakra, intuition and insight. Mm-hmm. And then finally at the top of your head, the crown chakra. That one governs your spiritual connection.
Wow. Okay. That's quite a system. So how does he connect all of that to the inner child work?
So basically he explains that our childhood experiences, especially traumatic ones, are processed through these different energy centers. Like, for example, if you think about that jolt of fear you feel when you're startled, that's your root chakra kicking in.
Okay.
It's that survival instinct. Fight or flight.
Gotcha. So if, let's say like in the sacral chakra.
Yeah.
If there's some blockage there from a childhood experience, could that affect like my adult relationships years later?
Oh, absolutely. It's like we're filtering our experiences through the lens of that old wound.
Right.
So yeah, if you're consistently feeling creatively stifled or you're having trouble connecting with your emotions, it could be that there's some blockage in the sacral chakra.
That's really interesting. So how do we start to heal these wounds and unblock those chakras? He seems to emphasize the importance of acceptance. I remember he even kind of poked fun at certain teachings and called them boring caca teachings.
Right. I think what he's getting at is that sometimes the first steps towards healing can seem pretty basic.
Okay.
But they're important. It's not about ignoring or denying the pain. It's about acknowledging it and finding a sense of okayness with what happened.
Yeah, like this was my experience as part of who I am.
Yeah.
But I'm not condoning what happened.
Right.
I'm not blaming myself.
Exactly.
There's that really intense quote that he had that stuck with me. Trauma is love. Trauma is life. Perpetrators are love. Perpetrators are light. It's all okay. You're safe. You're universally, fundamentally, eternally saved.
That's a powerful statement. He seems to be pointing towards a perspective that seeks to understand even the most difficult experiences.
Yeah.
within a larger kind of universal context.
And maybe through that understanding, we can start to release the energy that's been stuck in those lower chakras.
Yeah.
What happens when that energy starts to flow freely again?
Well, that's when Bentinho says that real healing and like this super accelerated growth can happen.
So I'm definitely curious to learn more about what he means by this super accelerated growth.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just practically speaking, like, how can we identify where our own inner child wounds might be coming from?
Great questions.
Yeah, those are some big ones.
Yeah, why don't we dive into those next?
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're talking about this idea of like super accelerated growth.
Yeah.
That Bentinho experienced after he did this inner child healing work.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly did he mean by that? Like, can we actually achieve something similar?
He describes it as this feeling of constantly learning and evolving from every single experience.
Okay.
Like he's just always growing. It's like by healing those deeper wounds, he kind of opened himself up to this whole new level of awareness.
Okay, yeah, that sounds pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we even begin to identify where those wounds are coming from in the first place? Like, most of us aren't walking around thinking like, oh, there's my wounded inner child acting up again.
Right. No, it's definitely a lot more subtle than that. I think a good place to start is just paying attention to your emotional reactions. Like, when do you feel most triggered? What situations bring up those like really intense feelings of, anger or sadness or fear?
So like, if I'm constantly ending up in relationships,
yeah,
where I feel unheard or taken advantage of,
mm-hmm.
could that be a sign that there's like some inner child stuff going on there?
Definitely. Yeah, that pattern could be stemming from experiences you had earlier in life where your needs weren't met.
Okay.
Or maybe you felt like your voice didn't matter. Like maybe you had a caregiver who was emotionally unavailable or someone who was constantly criticizing you.
Right.
Yeah. Those early experiences can create a blueprint for how we relate to others as adults.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like I'm unconsciously recreating those old dynamics
Exactly.
in my adult life.
Hmm.
So once I start to notice those patterns, what's the next step? Is it just a matter of like analyzing my way out of them?
Well, analyzing our past can definitely be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not the whole picture. Remember, we're dealing with energy that's been blocked or stuck for years. So it's not just about understanding where those patterns are coming from. We also need to actually work with that emotional energy itself.
So it's not just about thinking my way through it. It's about like feeling my way through it too.
Exactly. It's about releasing that stuck energy. And there are so many different approaches to doing this.
Okay.
Some people find therapy incredibly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Others connect with practices like meditation or yoga or breath work.
Right.
Yeah, it's really about finding what works for you, what resonates with you, and allows you to access and release those stored emotions safely.
So Bentinho also talked about forgiveness as being a crucial part of this healing process. But how do you forgive someone who hurt you deeply, especially if they never even apologized or acknowledged the pain that they caused?
That's a really tough question, and there's no easy answer. But it's important to remember that forgiveness isn't about condoning someone's actions. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment and anger.
So it's not about saying what you did was okay.
Right.
It's more about saying, I'm choosing to let go of this pain so it doesn't control me anymore.
Exactly. Yes. It's about reclaiming your power and choosing to live from a place of love rather than bitterness. It's a powerful act of self-love and liberation.
Okay, that's really helpful. So let's say we've done the work. We've identified the wounds. We've processed the emotions. We've started to forgive. What does it actually look like to live with a healed inner child? Like, how does that show up in our everyday lives?
One of the most noticeable changes is this sense of inner peace and stability.
Okay.
When we're no longer reacting from those old wounds, we're less triggered by what's happening around us. We're able to respond to challenges with more grace and resilience.
Like we finally have the emotional resources to kind of navigate life's ups and downs without completely falling apart.
Yeah, exactly. We're not weighed down by all that baggage from the past anymore. We can show up with more authenticity and joy and confidence.
It's interesting because he talked about how after doing this work, his life felt super accelerated. Do you think that's because he was then free to actually learn from those challenging experiences?
That's a really insightful connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. When we're operating from a place of wholeness,
Yeah.
we're open to receiving the lessons and blessings that life has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
We're not stuck in those old patterns of self-sabotage or fear. We're free to create a life that actually aligns with our true desires and purpose.
So it's not just about fixing the past.
Right.
It's about creating a more fulfilling present.
Beautifully said, yes. And as we heal those old wounds, we naturally start making different choices. Choices that are aligned with our true selves, rather than, those unconscious patterns that we've been repeating.
And those choices then can have like a ripple effect.
Totally.
On every area of our lives.
Absolutely. Our relationships, our careers, our sense of purpose.
Yeah. This has been a really incredible conversation. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of this topic.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned so much already. Is it realistic to think we can fully heal our wounded inner child? Or is it more of an ongoing process?
That's a great question. I think it's both.
Mm-hmm.
We can definitely reach a point of deep healing and integration.
Okay.
Where those old wounds don't have the same power over us anymore.
Right.
But we're human. Life's going to throw us curveballs. There will be times when those old patterns resurface or, new challenges trigger those familiar feelings.
But it's not about achieving some perfect state of healing.
Right.
It's about having the tools and the awareness to navigate those challenges in a healthier way.
Exactly. It's about developing a loving and compassionate relationship with ourselves, with all parts of ourselves, even those wounded parts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Recognizing that healing is a journey, not a destination.
I love that. It takes the pressure off needing to fix ourselves.
Yeah.
It allows us to just embrace the process.
And that's where the real magic happens. When we can surrender to the journey with all of its twists and turns and just trust that we have everything we need within us to heal and thrive.
Okay, so I'm hearing that this is a lifelong journey,
Mm-hmm.
but where do we even begin? If someone's listening to this thinking, okay, this resonates with me,
Yeah.
but where do I start? What would you suggest?
Well, it's so individual, you know. But I think starting with self-compassion is huge.
Yeah.
Just be really gentle with yourself. As you start to explore these, sometimes tender places, it's taken a lifetime to build up these patterns.
Right.
So it's going to take time to unwind them.
We're slowly peeling back the layers of an onion. Right?
Exactly. And as you start to become more aware of, your inner child, just notice how they communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Do they show up as that critical voice in your head?
Yeah.
Or a fear of failure or, a need to please everyone?
So once we start to recognize those patterns, how do we actually begin to heal them?
Well, there are a lot of wonderful resources out there. Therapy can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Having a skilled therapist who can provide that safe and supportive space to really explore those deeper wounds and develop some healthier coping mechanisms.
And there are so many different types of therapy, too.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Maybe someone's drawn to talk therapy, but someone else might connect more with art therapy.
Totally.
Or somatic experiencing or something like that.
It's about finding what feels right for you.
Yeah.
And then beyond therapy, there are practices like journaling, meditation, creative expression. All of those can be incredibly healing.
That makes me think back to the chakras again. If someone identifies that there's a blockage in a specific chakra,
yeah,
are there things they can do to kind of target that area and help unblock it?
Oh, for sure. So, for example, let's say someone's struggling with low self-esteem and maybe a fear of speaking their truth. That could point to a blockage in the throat chakra.
Okay.
And so practices like singing or chanting or even just spending time in nature
can help to open up that energy center.
So it's not just about sitting on a meditation cushion and hoping for the best.
Right.
There are tangible things we can do.
Exactly. There are things we can do to cultivate that healing.
Mm-hmm. And as we heal those specific areas, it's this ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
Like he was saying, his life felt super accelerated. And I think that comes from being able to actually learn and grow from every experience instead of just reacting to it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not just surviving anymore. You're thriving.
Yeah.
You're really embracing life fully.
Yeah. With all the messiness and the beauty.
Exactly.
It's all part of it. Well, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like we've learned so much. And, for anyone listening, there are so many resources out there.
Absolutely.
Books, workshops, support groups, online communities.
Yeah. You are not alone on this journey.
Yeah, that's so important to remember. Sometimes just knowing that you're not alone can make all the difference. So, as we wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah. What's one thing you'd want our listeners to walk away with today?
I think just remembering that healing the wounded inner child is such a profound act of self-love.
Mm-hmm.
It's about reclaiming your wholeness and stepping into your full potential. And it's a journey. It's not a destination, but it's a journey worth taking.
Beautifully said. And I would just add that it's never too late to begin.
Yes.
No matter what you've experienced in the past, you have the power to heal.
Absolutely.
And create a brighter future for yourself. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
This was a really incredible conversation. And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and inspiration. Remember to be gentle with yourself as you embark on this journey. And know that you have the strength and resilience within you to heal and thrive.